Hey everybody, welcome to Coshun Cast. It's January 25th. We are live at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Craig Coshun with producer extraordinaire James Stewart. James, how are you?
Doing well. You said it was January 25th, so I have to actually shout out as we start the show. Today is my dad's birthday, so happy birthday to James Stewart Sr.
Wiggle your microphone because it sounds like it's shorting out.
What now?
No.
No?
No.
Better?
No.
Good start to the show. Welcome back.
Well, there you go. That sounds better.
There we go. Good?
Okay, don't move for the rest of the show.
So
your dad's birthday is today.
Yeah.
My wife's birthday was yesterday. That's nice. Good.
Yeah,
so is there? We like oversweeted and overdid it with eating, but we had a good time. That was fun.
Yeah. My father-in-law's birthday was a couple days ago, and my mother-in-law's birthday is tomorrow. So
yeah,
January is a big month for birthdays for us.
It is here too. My oldest son John's birthday was earlier in January too, so that was all good stuff. So what now? We haven't been on the air for over a week.
Yeah,
I got put in COVID jail, unfortunately. So that really didn't prohibit us from doing our show, but it felt to me like not being able to work did. So
yeah, it was a good excuse. It was a good excuse to not. Yeah, the little COVID is still going around. But yeah, everything good with you guys. Everyone's happy and healthy.
Yeah, the good news is we'll just call it asymptomatic, and we did our due diligence, and everyone got tested, and everyone's healthy, and we even got one kid off to Barcelona, so he's out there now. I should have told him. I should have sent him a text to watch this today because I don't know what time it is over there. It's probably about 10 o'clock at night over there right now. Yeah, so that would have been.
I highly doubt that his first couple of nights in Barcelona, he's sitting in front of a computer. So.
No, but if he needed a good night's sleep, he could watch us, and that would put him to sleep pretty fast.
That's true.
So now, so the Christmas lights are down, and I got one of these text alerts that a lot of the Christmas lights at your house went down into your office. Is that true?
They did. I just finished setting up my office, so I got a little mood lighting. I can show you a little bit here.
Yeah, we want to see it. Oh, that's
the ceiling and the floor lined. I would show you the whole room, but last time I did that, my mic went crazy. But I can give you a little light show.
Yeah, no, we need to see the light show.
There we go. Set the mood in here.
Nice.
Go with red or blue, green.
So now,
if I get bored and I
turn these lights on and go to town with them, that's what I want to know.
Right. It's for when I get bored. If a topic really gets boring, I'm just going to start playing with my lights.
So let's hit it. We got a lot to talk about today. We've got Packers, we've got Bucks, we've got a little bit of baseball. We're going to dive a little bit deeper in a few of those things as well. First and foremost, of course, the Packers coming off one of the most disappointing losses ever. I mean, let's not poo-poo this. It was one of the most disappointing losses ever in everybody's lifetime that's living and watching that game the other night. And you were there.
I was.
So you got to first tell us what the mood was like in that last 5 minutes when absolutely everything turned upside down.
Yeah, it was. Luckily, there was some alcohol involved, so I wasn't in too bad of a mood until the game ended. But the game itself was like your classic Lambeau playoff game. It was freezing cold, snowing. And it started out nice, the first touchdown, and they got the ball back and they're moving, and the fumble from Mercedes Lewis, that pretty much kind of just stopped everything. It felt like both offenses after that couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But that last kind of 5 minutes after that punt block, it was just, it felt like what just happened. And in reality, when you think back on it, special teams has been an issue all year, and you kind of just hoped it didn't burn you. And this wasn't the game for special teams to burn you because there was no offense from either team. Neither quarterback had a touchdown. I mean, San Francisco's offense didn't have a touchdown, and somehow you still lose. So it was just, there was a lot of disbelief. There was a lot of confusion. And then you look at big picture, 0-4 against San Francisco in the playoffs, and that's where you start to think, like you said, it's one of those really painful losses.
Yeah, it was. Of course, I watched it, and I know so many other people did too. In fact, we had. I'll tell you what the city of Milwaukee was like. We had the Bucks game that started about 75 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah.
So the game was over. We were done with our shows, and I was able to get back to the condo downtown. My drive took about 2.5 minutes because there was literally nobody on any of the streets, and this was through bar area and everything. You could shoot a cannon down and you wouldn't hit anybody. So everybody was tuned into that Packer game. There's no doubt about it. And that to me is part of the reason why this was such a disappointing finish. And I don't think there's been a gut wrencher that I can remember other than that NFC Championship game out in Seattle. You know, I don't know how many years ago it was where the Packers were all lined up and all of a sudden, you know, Seattle did everything right and the Packers did everything wrong, the onside kick, all that stuff. So we all remember that. But I'd say those two in my lifetime are probably the two most disappointing losses just because it was the Packers game basically to win, and they didn't do it. They lost. So that to me, I mean, if you had to rank them, if you're asking me if you ranked them, I'd say those two right there would top my list without question. And I was at the two Favre Super Bowls. The win was great, and then the next year the loss in the final minute to Denver. That still didn't punch as hard as these two that I'm talking about.
And the hard thing about it too is, like, you know, not to diminish San Francisco in any way. Like, they did their job, they won the game, but somehow Jimmy Garoppolo has played 2 playoff games, won them both, and not scored a touchdown.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's mind-numbing to think that we talk about Lambeau as this ultimate home field advantage, and in reality, that home field advantage worked in their favor because their quarterback's not going to beat you. He gave, like everyone has said, in every round and every game, he's going to give you one, and he gave you one. And when they got that pick, they turned it around and had the broken play down to Aaron Jones that was, 70 yards or whatever it was. And then to have that field goal blocked, it was just like, okay, it wasn't Mason missing this time, but ultimately your field goal team let you down again. And it's just like, how can this be all year?
Yeah.
This shouldn't have been a shock. You know what I mean? Like, I guess it was shocking that it wasn't a miss and it was a block, but still the field goal unit itself has caused so many issues this season. And it's almost like, in hindsight, it's kind of crazy to think that they were where they were. And then they allowed it to be the reason that they lost again. The field goal and the punt. It's just like special teams. And it's easy to put all the blame on Aaron because they only scored 10 points, right? Like, if you're the MVP, you got to score more than 10. But at the end of the day, they lost because they couldn't punt the ball and they couldn't kick a field goal.
Yeah. And so here's my thing. Like you worded it, this shouldn't come as a surprise. To me, it did, though, because these weren't issues in the final month or 6 weeks of the season. Right. Special teams is not that difficult if you pay attention to it and you have detail and you put the right people in place. And they didn't do that this year to a full capacity and to their best ability, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And whether it's partly coaching, obviously, but it looked like they had a fix going into the playoffs, and to completely crumble the way they did And look, it comes down to blocking and being in your coachable right positions. Let's face it. And we didn't see that on the blocked field goal, and we certainly didn't see it on the blocked punt. I mean, you can't allow that type of penetration. I mean, that's just a killer and a half. So yeah, that was a stunner. There's no question about that. How that turned out. 2 fumbles lost, a blocked field goal, and a blocked punt for a touchdown. There's no way you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
There's just no way you're going to win a close game like that.
For sure. And you see the comment here from John Coshun.
What's he got?
He said, hard to come off 2 weeks of preparation, and special teams still isn't prepared for the game. The frozen tundra advantage seemed to be overrated. It comes down to the team that was more prepared. And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, myself included, felt good about the fact that it was going to be that cold. I know, obviously, going to that game, I wasn't excited to be that cold, but I knew, or at least going into that game, I felt that, okay, that this is going to be our advantage. Like, they're a California team. But ultimately, they made it through what, from my vantage point, it looked like the first half, they were cold. The second half, everybody was cold, so it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of, who made a play, and they made the 2 plays they needed to make.
Well, it's fun. John spells his last name the same as mine. I wonder if he's related. Here's the other thing too about I worried about this overplay of home field advantage, and it's going to be 0, and there might be snow in the second half and all that. Who cares? Are you ready to play? Are you ready to win? And maybe at one point of pro sports, home field advantage was truly a big advantage, or home court advantage. It hasn't been that way in baseball for years. If you look at all of the Packers' success of yesteryear, all the way up through the end of Favre's career, they had never lost a home playoff game. They lost their first home playoff game in 2003, and they've lost 6 since then, including Saturday night. So, John's right. We've talked about it. It's who's prepared the most. And guess what? Either everyone's going to be hot if they're playing a game in Florida. It doesn't matter if you're wearing the dark jerseys or the light jerseys. Are you ready to play? And everyone's going to be cold in Green Bay when it's 0 out on a Saturday night in January. I mean, it's just, you got to be ready, and you got to be ready to go, and you got to have the will to win and be as prepared as possible. And unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah, and we got another comment from John. Said the pass to Aaron Jones was horrible. Missing Lazard was another tough play. I'm okay with coming back, but I hope that he stops the Devontae tunnel vision, which I think I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say it was like 18 of the 20 completions that he had were to Devontae or Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
and it was pretty clear that Devontae is his security blanket, which is understandable. I mean, the guy's rated as the best receiver in the league. But when we go back and we look at the freeze frames of kind of that third down, you saw Lazard wide open. And that's usually something that Aaron sees. I know he does have a tendency to lock in on guys, but when they're double and triple teamed, he's good enough to make that second read, and generally does. So to see that is kind of just frustrating, and it's kind of, you don't even know what to say about it at some point. Like, I'm not going to come up here and say that Aaron Rodgers is a bad quarterback, right? Like, he's an amazing quarterback. He missed a read that every quarterback should have been able to make, and it hurt you in the biggest moment of the year, and that's the tough part. But yeah, I think now all the talk is he coming back, or is he this, is he that? I think the hard part for me when it comes to that is I hope that we don't have to go through another will I, won't I retire for 2-3 years like we did with Brett Favre. I think the main difference is when we were going through that with Favre, we saw glimpses of Aaron. we have not seen glimpses of Jordan Love that tell us, okay, if Aaron leaves, we'll be fine.
Well, neither is the team. If they're there, I mean, look at that.
Right.
The GM and the head coach are like, we really want Aaron to come back. We really want him to retire as a backer whenever that's going to be. And I'd be saying the same thing right now. I mean,
and that's kind of the hard part, because it's easy to say like Aaron hasn't gotten it done, because the fact that we've had Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre back to back, and we have 2 Super Bowls to show for it, is hard to kind of stomach. But also on the flip side, do you have a better option? As of right now, from what we've seen, Jordan Love is not a better option. So realistically, any team that is, or anyone that is not kind of looking for attention, and anyone that is being honest, is saying they're going to do whatever they can get, whatever they can to keep Aaron. Because why wouldn't you? He's potentially going to be the MVP. So do you want to move on from a 4-time MVP to a quarterback that we've seen nothing from? Or do you, I mean, the obvious thing, you fight for Aaron, obviously. It's going to hurt and it's going to suck, and he's difficult to deal with and this and that. But at the end of the day, he gives you your best option to win. And I think that he will also see that. Because where does he have a better option to walk in and win?
Well, if he doesn't want to go through any type of rebuild, which I totally get, I wouldn't either promise him. You're going to be pretty limited, because there's a lot of teams that need a quarterback right now and think that they could be better instantly with him, but it doesn't mean they're going to be a title contender. And it doesn't mean they're going to be able to put together anything better than what the Packers have as far as being this close to being in a Super Bowl. I mean, they are a Super Bowl contender. They had a great year. They were in this game despite all the debacles that they made, and still a chance to win, and they ended up losing. So they are this close. I guess your other option isn't so much to focus perhaps on Jordan Love, saying he's taken over quarterback, he's taken this exact same team, as it is if you're moving on from Aaron Rodgers and you can get something of quality in return, and how you use that. And I know there's been, some talk out there about turning an exchange for Aaron Rodgers into continuing to prove an already really good defense,
right?
And making that defense take center spotlight, and having an offense that has a pretty good line and 2 pretty good running backs, and some decent receivers with even a mediocre quarterback. I mean, did I just describe the San Francisco 49ers offense?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
The problem with that, though, is if Aaron goes, I would be shocked if Devontae stays.
No, he won't stay.
Right. So,
but it's still the rest of the team on offense is not
the
bad.
Is San Francisco also has a guy like Deebo Samuel. Like I don't see that guy on Green Bay. But I guess you're right. There's 2 ways to kind of look at this. There is the idea that if you get enough back for him, you can surround Jordan Love or whoever quarterback to be named later with enough pieces to be decent. But that's kind of the hard part. I look at it, I guess, is I don't know that I would be I would be upset if Aaron left, right? I would also be mildly okay with it. But he just potentially just won the MVP. It's hard to think that you're just cool to move on.
Yep. What's John got now? Is it reassuring to you too that LaFleur says the top decision makers are all on the same page about wanting Rodgers back? In the past couple of years, it seems like they haven't been unanimous on this. Absolutely. That's a must.
Yeah.
And right now this organization is in a spot right now. They are a 180 compared to last year's final game, which was also a disappointing loss, between number 12, your general manager, and your head coach. There's absolutely, make no mistake about that. I mean, the answer to that is yes, it is reassuring that everybody is more on the same page, and it does. I mean, if you're hopeful or you're just being realistic, I think just being realistic, I think there's a good chance that this team returns intact for next year.
Yeah, I mean,
I do. I just do.
I think it's the best option for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But to play kind of devil's advocate, if you're LaFleur and Gutekunst and the Packers, the last thing, I don't care how I feel about it, the last thing I'm going to do is come out and look like we're not on the same page. Because
Right.
they got pretty much clowned for a year, and then Aaron almost essentially won the MVP and proved it all right that he's the genius in the room and they're the ones kind of screwing it up. And there's no possible way that you could come back after what just happened and not at least appear to be on the same page.
Yeah. And Rodgers has said it repeatedly too, James, that he had the most fun maybe out of his this season in his entire career, and I don't think that's signs for retirement. And I think I also saw today that he said he's not going to sit out a year and come back. He doesn't need to think about it like that. He knows he's pushing 40 here, so he wants to keep going. It's just whether or not it's going to be here. So
and that's kind of what makes me feel like that he's going to be here. Because again, I just feel like at this point, I know we just saw Tom Brady do it, and I know that we just saw Matt Stafford go from Lions to Rams. So this idea of leaving for greener pasture we've got two examples of it in the last 2 years, but I just don't see an easy, this is where everyone has the most comfort. Everyone knows everyone. And I would assume that if Aaron stays, that Devontae is staying, because that's been his whole thing, is that they're not signing the guys that need to be signed. So if Aaron's here, Devontae will be here. At least that's my thought process. So if that's the case, then there's no reason to leave.
And oh, by the way, Bakhtiari obviously didn't play in the game on Saturday night. That was clearly a disappointment. I think it was more of a disappointment. I've been around sports too long. I feel bad for guys who have a serious injury. Yeah. They fight for a year to come back, and sometimes the calendar doesn't cooperate with the healing process, and obviously that was the case with Bakhtiari in the last probably 2 full months from Thanksgiving on through this past Saturday, that he just wasn't fully ready to play. Yeah, he played in that Detroit game, and yes, he had to test everything out, but it's really a shame that he couldn't have finished out this year and said, hey, I'm ready to go. But now this offseason does allow him to heal up again. But my bottom line is that offensive line is as good as it gets.
Right.
So don't underestimate, anybody watching or listening, that it's all about the receivers or the philosophy. He's got everybody in place to come back to a really, really good team. And again, Super Bowl contender. Instantly, they'd be a Super Bowl contender. There's no question about it.
And that's why I think that it's going to happen, because you can't really ask for much more. I mean, there's going to be national doubt upon them, but as far as like their actual talent, Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. You want to hit anything else on the Pack before we move on to the Bucks?
No, I think we'll kind of just wait a couple days and stuff will trickle out. So there'll be more Packers talk as we get closer to it. But as far as the Bucks, like you said, they played that night. There was no Giannis, but they took care of business. But I think the big story, obviously, surrounding the Bucks is Grayson Allen and his 1-game suspension. What was your take on that foul?
Well, I mean, it was a hard foul, and I did not believe there was any intention to hurt. Now, a hard foul with no intention to hurt can still result in somebody like Alex Caruso breaking his wrist and being out for possibly 2 months, and that's a shame that happened. There's no doubt about it. But unfortunately, in this case, Grayson Allen just gets catapulted to the top of the list of he's a dirty player. You all know he's a dirty player. Its reputation of being a dirty player all the way back to college. Well, between between that hit and all the way back to college, 4 years have gone by, and he's turned out to be a very solid and very good NBA player with a good work ethic and good attitude. This part right now is what probably bothers me the most. A 1-game suspension is a 1-game suspension. If the league thought he could have done something differently while both players were up in the air off their feet, all the power to him. We see 1-game suspensions for stuff we all disagree with.
Right.
But nobody's disagreed with that. Everyone else seems outside of, Wisconsin or Milwaukee wants to say, well, this guy, that was such a dirty hit, he should be out for the length of time Caruso. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
No player's ever been suspended for the same length of time somebody's missed because they got injured on a play. But James, we see this every single night in every single game. There are hard fouls like this. And do some of them take your breath away a little bit more than others? Absolutely. Do guys get hurt? Absolutely. Do guys bounce back? Absolutely. But I think the thing that I'm a little bit concerned upon is this whole reputation thing that's starting to bubble up again. And it's bubbling up with former players, current coaches, outside the league. And I will say I'm very happy that when that suspension came out, the Bucks immediately said, our only statement is we don't agree with the league's call on this one. And that needs to be done. The last thing you want is this guy to be playing every night thinking there's a reputation of the 3 guys that are refereeing and who's ever, taking a look at the rules committees back in New York.
Yeah, and that's the thing is he has to know that the team has his back. But as far as the actual play and the suspension, to me, like a 1-game suspension is indicative that the league, we got to do something. I don't know. Like the guy, Caruso's hurt, so let's give him a game. We got to punish him in some way. But to me, I think that if the league thought that there was true intent, it'd be much more than a 1-game suspension. It wouldn't.
That's a good point.
To me, a 1-game
good point too, because the suspension didn't come out until after Caruso's injury was revealed.
Exactly. And that's the other thing too, is you have to remember that the info about his injury came after, because he finished the game, didn't he?
I think he did, but I think he did.
Okay. I thought he did, but regardless, either way, the information of him being out 6 to 8 weeks came like a day later.
Right. So, after x-rays and stuff.
Right. So the image of Grayson, whatever, he said that there was someone told a joke on the sideline and that's why he was kind of smiling. But the image of that is now being juxtaposed to, they're showing the injury, then they're showing him laughing, then they're saying he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. That's not how it happened. And he had no idea that he was severely injured or whatever. And we have no idea what was said on the sideline. But to me, that play happened so fast that the argument is being made that he went up and the first hand was a basketball play, right? And the second hand that swiped across all of a sudden is this dirty, intentional, I'm trying to hurt someone. Now, we've seen this play in slow motion. You and I watched it in slow motion. All the fans watched it in slow motion. But I promise you, it did not happen in slow motion. So he wasn't in the air. Oh, no, I missed the block. What should I do? I think I'm going to hurt him. That's not what happens. That's such a bang play on a fast break. You either go up with intent or you don't. I just don't believe that halfway through them both spinning in the air, he decided to injure him.
I'll throw this out, and I know we can't run video in this of plays because of the copyright and all that kind of stuff. But so Sacramento was in town on Saturday, and De'Aaron Fox just maybe a week before that, several days before that, had a hard foul on somebody against the Rockets. I can't remember his name. That to me looked intentional.
Yeah.
It was basically player with ball goes up and Fox goes up as well, and he did one of these, across the chest, and guy flipped back straight on his back and stuff. That, now, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying that is almost an equal play of what we saw almost with Allen. But I thought Allen it was a basketball play to stop the guy from scoring, and that's what you do in the league. I mean, why go up and knock somebody and allow them to have an and one, right? I mean, it's all about stopping the ball, and I think that second motion was, trying to stop the ball, and he caught his head. But I don't want to make excuses for him. I just want to. Yeah. My concern on our conversation is, I don't think it's fair right now that this reputation thing from college is being ignited now 4 years into an NBA career, which was pretty free and solid, and change of career up until now.
To me, ultimately, I think that we have to make the distinction between a dangerous play and a dirty play. I think that anytime you're on a fast break and you go up for a block, it's probably a dangerous play. I mean, how many times do you see Giannis or LeBron in a full-out sprint going up for one of these blocks, and you hold your breath and hope? It's a dangerous play. There's too much going on. There's 6'5" guys flying through the air, and this is one of those dangerous plays that happens on a fast break, and unfortunately, it turned out negative for Alex Caruso. We obviously don't wish. I've made the joke that I don't like any Chicago team, Bulls, Bears, whatever. But I don't wish that any of those guys get hurt, and I can't imagine that any of the guys on the court feel the same way.
All right, so that begs this question now. That was just the first meeting of 4 between these two teams, and there hasn't been a Bucks-Bulls rivalry, it seems like, for at least 10 years. We all know what the Bulls were like, Michael Jordan World Championships, and they're following even when he was done playing, and the team definitely hit near rock bottom. They still had their fan base. They didn't go away, which I applaud. It was something going down to the United Center when the Bulls, weren't very good, and having that place sold out game after game after game after game after year. It's like, wow, this is crazy. But they used to come up to the Bradley Center. They haven't come up to Pfizer Forum until last week. And they were in the building, that's for sure. But there's still 3 games left between these two teams. 2 are going to be in Chicago, and obviously 1 in Milwaukee here in the second half of the NBA season. So now what happens when these two teams get together, knowing how pissed off the Bulls have been about this hit?
I would assume the first game you're going to see some quick whistles, just to kind of hedge that off. But I know that we've heard from a couple former players and talking about how it was back in the day, and he'll pay for this and whatever. You hope that kind of stuff doesn't take place. You hope that guys that there's some talk behind the scenes, and maybe Grayson has reached out, or who knows, I don't know. But you hope that there's some kind of understanding that this has the potential to be a really good rivalry, because the Bulls do obviously look a lot better, and DeRozan's been playing very well, and when they get Levine and Caruso and Lonzo Ball back, like, they're going to be a formative team, and that could be a very fun rivalry that we could have again. Kind of two teams returning to near the top of the East would be fun, and I just hope it's not. I hope it's not ruined by either a lot of cheap fouls or injured stars or whatever. I mean, obviously it's easy to say that now because our guy wasn't injured, but I just hope that that's not kind of the outcome. I hope the outcome is that there's just a little bit more of competitive fire and not dirty play by either team.
Oh, there's going to be something on.
There's going to be something.
I just think it's going to be. I mean, I just do. I mean, you look at it. I just want to bring this up because the Bucks have had 3 days between games, including today, and then they're back on the court tomorrow at Cleveland. I mean, here's the East. Miami's on top by a half game over the Bulls, half game over the Nets, one full game over the Bucks, game and a half over Cleveland. I mean, look at your top five teams in the East are all within a game and a half of each other, and two of them are going to be two teams the Bucks are not only have just faced within a week, but are in their division. So they get to play these guys 4 times. So, look out. Here we go. I mean, the Cavs 29-19. The Bucks are 30-19. Cavs, Bulls. I'll throw the Heat in there. Hornets. All improved teams. Big time this year.
The Cavs have been kind of a surprise, really. They've kind of been sneakily doing a lot of this under the radar if you're not paying attention. But they're, Evan Mobley. They've got a young team that's got some fire to them. So it's going to be fun the rest of the way. I think kind of like you were saying that the East is a lot better than it's been in previous years, and part of that is because these quote unquote former bad teams are kind of maturing and getting better. We obviously had trouble with the Hornets back-to-back games. So there's a kind of a lot of star power out there spread out in the East.
So we have
the Nets.
Right. Well, we have 2 weeks basically until the trade deadline. Giannis didn't play in the game the other day. We continue to see him. I find it just a little bit interesting how the officiating has gone against Giannis, and not like he's committing fouls, he's not committing, just kind of the physical beating. And I think this has been a concern for all of us, Bucks fans and those who cover the team and stuff, how long he can sit in the middle and take all this, and then not get calls at times when you think he should. I mean, that's one thing, but trade deadline's coming up. Do you still target a big man? I mean, there hasn't been talk about Lopez is back with the team, and he's reportedly doing some things. But where do you see, and how long into the season do you think, into the second half of the season, they go without that added layer of a big man?
Well, and I think too, like obviously whatever comes out from kind of Wes's injury, and I guess kind of Wes's injury really kind of decides what you want to do with Dante, if he's tradable or what, or whatever, if you want to keep him, because if Wes is out and you move Dante, you need wing help now,
right?
Especially defensive wing help. So they're kind of in an interesting situation. And like you said, we haven't heard very much about Lopez other than the fact that he's around again. But I would think that they're probably looking for some kind of like a Robert Covington type 4 that can shoot. Another one of those kind of all around stick 'em anywhere players. Can play 5 in the smallest of lineups, but could play some 3 in the bigger lineup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I would assume they're looking for. But just only for the sake of kind of getting Giannis off the court sometimes, so that he doesn't have to take this pounding on a regular basis. Which, I was just kind of thinking about this, and I'm not saying this is happening, but I wonder, with the amount of time that Giannis takes to shoot a free throw, every time he's fouled, it's like an extra 3-4 minutes added to the game. Do you think maybe that's why the refs are like, I can't call every foul. This guy's going to add an hour to the game. If he goes to the line 30 times,
it's interesting because between, if he's going to go to the free throw line 20 times a game, and I don't know if it's quite that, but I know he leads the league.
Yeah, I'm exaggerating.
He leads the league though, and going in free throw attempts. So we know that that's part of his game. These games do take a while. I think that Bulls game, if I remember right, it took like 2 hours and 45 minutes to play. Yeah. That's like, I didn't think we'd be heading over to the baseball side,
Right.
during the winter, but
Maybe some of those national TV games, they're like, this is outside the window. You got to stop with all these fouls.
yeah, no kidding. But they, I just think, I just think the bottom line is he needs some relief. But look, whatever they decide to do, and there's something that's gonna happen, whether it's minor or somewhat major. They need production from whatever John Horst decides to do. You can't just say, you know what, we need to give Giannis a break and that's it. They need production.
Because if that's the case, just put Semi Ojeleye in. If you just need him off the floor for a minute.
Right.
But obviously, like you said, they're looking for production.
Right. But I will say this, you brought up Dante's name, and he had his best game in a limited time that he's been able to get back on the court the other night against Sacramento. I think he had 20 points. Shot well, played well, made good decisions, those types of things. And I think with Dante missing, so much time going all the way back to June or May up until now, I think for him, allowing himself to count on his instincts, and he's a smart guy, but you can just tell in this limited time, he's still trying to not make a mistake almost. And I thought he kind of let that all out on Saturday night, and they needed him. Wes went out fairly early. The Bucks already decided not to play Giannis, so that changes the complexion of what you do a little bit too. So it'll be interesting. I mean,
they're not the same team they were when he left, and they learned how to win without him, offensively and defensively.
Right.
So for him to kind of for people to think that he was just going to slide right back in, because he's not the star, so he's got to slide back into a role that is left, or recarve his role. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to take time, but we see games like this. He was 6 for 10, 3 or 5 from 3. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what you would hope, but obviously with kind of the new role that Pat has taken, that there's a ton of shots there, and Grayson Allen. So there's just a lot of things that kind of determine how and when he's playing, and that's not how he left the situation. So he's got some learning to do.
I'm a little bit concerned with West. He took a knee-to-knee direct contact. He's not going to play against the Cavs on Wednesday. I know Coach Bud said yesterday, they're hoping it's basically kind of a day-to-day thing. It's all about how somebody responds, and in such a sensitive area and a critical area too. I just want to say that he has really been, to me, the biggest eye-opener on this team this year. I mean, beyond Bobby Portis' double-doubles and stuff, that doesn't surprise me as much as what we have seen athletically, and really just being all in on everything. I can't begin to tell you how many people I've talked to, including you and I, having these conversations going, where was this Wes 2 years ago when he was on the team? Not to say he played bad, but this particular stint has been outstanding. And
you said all in. How often have you seen a guy with that kind of injury? He must have went up and down the court 3-4 times before before he got out of the game, like clearly in pain, grimacing, playing defense, still trying to run the offensive play. Like, so this is a different kind of West that we saw 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Season before the championship, because he wasn't part of the championship last year. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for him indeed. We're almost out of time here, my friend, and I did have a little baseball on the list. But I don't think we, look, right up to this now, they've met 2 days in a row, Owners and Players Association, and they're making a little bit of progress, enough to say, let's meet again potentially by the end of the week. Are they making great concessions? No. So there's no time to hold your breath. There's still plenty of time for that. But to me anyway, I thought this was a positive week because you can't get it done unless you're talking.
Yeah, and that's, I think the good thing too is the fact that it's coming out that they are talking and they are kind of considering them to be positive conversations. That no one's kind of playing. Neither side is trying to play the media game of they're not helping us, we're not helping them. So the fact that they are actually meeting 2 days in a row and talking is a good sign, and both parties obviously want to get back to playing. So that's kind of the positive I'm going to take from it is the fact that no one's playing the blaming media game to try and get the upper edge.
The only thing I don't like to hear is some of the owners are saying we're willing to miss some games. I just don't think that needs to be said or even considered at this point when it's still January. I mean, I get it. We all understand that they could miss games, but I mean, if that's the case, you're already looking at saying, you know what, we're pushing this thing all the way to April 1st if we need to, and then you start spring training again. But we shall see. So, anything else, my friend?
Nope. Just did you watch this weekend of football after the Packer game?
Yeah.
I felt like I was
probably the first time I've ever done that, by the way, because I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, I felt like I was just checking scores and frustrated, but it looked like a great series or great weekend of games. But
I've never seen 4 games. This divisional round. You couldn't have scripted it any better if you're a full-fledged, not only football fan but sports fan. Who wasn't watching every single one of those games until the final seconds? It was great. It really was.
For sure. I was kind of just hoping that Brady and Mahomes would lose so that I could hear less Aaron Rodgers come Monday, but yeah.
Well, Brady's out, so you got half a wish, and Mahomes is too young and too good to be shut down, man. I don't know how you do that in 13 seconds, but he did it. So, but anyway, good stuff, my man. And Nick, faithful watcher, James, that camera be looking good. we forgot to get that one in there earlier.
Yeah, that's because he gave me this camera. He had some words about how bad my original camera was. So he gets.
Well, you know what? You don't look any better to me, just so you know.
Well, Nick's leaving us with one too. We'll have something to talk about next time. These overtime rules.
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. Hey, look, great question, great topic, but to me, if it was going to be changed, I mean, they've had all this time to change it. They've had games like this, scenarios like this, and if they don't want to look any closer to college football than they probably already do, if they want one defining moment that we're the NFL, that's the one, man. Yeah. That's the one.
For sure. But
all right.
It's working out for them too, so.
Yeah, well, what do they care? I mean, they still get an end result of a game. They need to have a winner, so. All right, good stuff. Maybe we'll be on end of this week. We shall see. If not, we'll see you within a week for sure. Great stuff, James.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll see everybody another time. Take care.